The 21st presidential election was on November 3rd, 1868. This election consisted of two parties. These parties were the Republican and Democratic parties. As the war was now over, the Republicans wanted to stop using the Union name and go back to calling themselves Republicans. With Lincoln being assassinated, Republicans wanted to choose a war hero as their candidate. With this, they chose Commanding General Ulysses S. Grant as their presidential candidate, and Speaker of the House Schuyler Colfax as their vice presidential candidate. After being exhausted by the war, Democrats just wanted normal politicians to represent their party again. They chose former New York Governor Horatio Seymour as their presidential candidate, and former representative of Missouri's 1st District, Francis Preston Blair Jr., as their vice presidential candidate. Now that the war was over, it was established that the Union's federal government would have say over national policy. This meant that Reconstruction was now the major topic of this election. The Democrats labeled Grant as the N-words candidate and themselves as the white man's candidate. It's insane to me today that you could just say that publicly and think it's a good thing. When Grant was under fire for removing Jews from his army, he apologized for saying, quote, "I have no prejudice against sect or race, but want each individual to be judged by his own merit." Order number 11 does not sustain this statement, I admit, but then I do sustain that order. It would never be issued if it had not been telegraphed the moment it was penned and without reflection. The media campaigned against Seymour, stating that he was not loyal to the Union. Democrats warned of a rule of a semi-barbarous race of blacks who are worshippers of fetishes and polygamists, whatever that means. Both the Republican Party being both the victor party of the Civil War and anti-slavery, most people thought it would be right for the Republicans to decide the outcome of the war. Ulysses S. Grant ended up winning the election. He won 52.66% of the popular vote and 72.79% of the electoral vote. Although this was a poor performance for a winning candidate since the last election, it would make sense now that most southern states were given their right to vote back. As the population was still divided on who should run the country, the states still had a supermajority agreement that it should be Grant.